everybody. We all had a good lunch. I am Oasis, your panel princess. Right now we are introducing our newest panel. It is How to Get into Voice Acting with Garry Chalk and Paul Eiding.
Who is it? What was her name?
Paul Eiding.
Garry Chalk.
What did I say?
That's what you said.
It sounded like
that's why I'm not on voice acting.
I couldn't understand what you were saying, so I just
And I guess
okay, I remember what was that.
Alright. The usual rigmarole. Please keep your cell phones off or on vibrate. As you can see, there are a lot of cameras, a lot of video recordings. People want to remember this. They don't want to remember that your ringtone is Big Pimpin'. Two, please try to keep the side conversations at a minimum. Yes, what you said is funny, but I can't hear what they're saying. And we paid money to hear what they said. 3, yes, I can hear your plastic bags from anywhere. Please note the fire exits. Nothing's on fire. Thank you, my stewardess. Sandy the steward. So, this should be it. Are you guys doing anything specific that I did?
We're taking requests. We're going to sing some of our old favorite songs. And
I want to hear Whiter Shade of Pale.
he does a great tap dance routine on top of the table. So.
yes,
Is there a pole somewhere? I do a lot of pole dancing too. There's no pole. Okay.
That's a true athlete. He's a pole dancer.
Yeah.
You think that's easy? I'll tell you what, I nearly broke my neck trying it. But
And he was just trying to lead it.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the show.
Since 1999.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our panel discussion on what it takes to be a voice actor, how to be a voice actor, and what they're looking for. I'm Garry Chalk. I voice a lot of characters, Optimus Prime, He-Man, and blah, blah, blah. Lots of different characters over the last 30 years. And this fellow here,
I'm Paul Eiding. Also, I've been doing stuff since the 80s, Hanna-Barbera, a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff, way back when. Transformers, Ben 10, GoBots, a lot of Pixar movies. I get to work on most of the Pixar films. And video games, lots of video games. I'm sure we've been in video games together without knowing it.
well, it's probably possible. I did the NFL Sports Interactive gym game. I did The Godfather, Need for Speed, Transformers, lots of different.
I've never
video.
done a Transformers game.
Well, then you're missing out.
What's the deal? What's the deal? I want to talk to you.
I don't understand it. I wasn't in the last one either, and it blew my mind. I said, "What? I've been doing the Transformers games forever," and then all of a sudden, no, sorry, you're not. Well, what do you mean? Well, because we're doing it in the States, and that's a political thing, you know. That's how
It happens. I did Metal Gear, four versions of Metal Gear. Now they're doing a new one called Rising, Metal Gear Rising, and my character is not going to appear in it. It's also, it's kind of sad. It's also silly what happens sometimes. I did Ben 10 for the first, I guess, 4 seasons. And then they changed Ben 10, and they upgraded him to, instead of being 10 years old, they made him 16. So they brought in a new writing group, new production team, new casting, a new director, and I had to go in and re-audition for the character I created. Which I thought
It goes like that.
It was a little silly, I thought, but I went in, and they said, well, he's 6 years older. Grandpa Max is now 6 years older, so maybe he's not as strong as he used to be. So maybe there's a little more air in his voice. So I said, okay, we did that. He said, no, maybe add a little more gravel. So I made a little more gravel. And they said, well, you know, it's only 6 years. Your voice as an adult doesn't change that much. So I won the part of Grandpa Max. It's crazy. It's crazy what we do.
No, it's, but I guess what it gets down to, what we're talking about here today is what it takes to be a voiceover actor. How do you get into the business, which is it's a tough game. I got to tell you, it's a tough racket to get into. But how do you get into it? What are they looking for? Oh yeah, can you hear me? Because I'm afraid that if I go back here, can you hear me when I'm here?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay, well that's cool. So I don't want to eat this microphone. I'm going to do that. It always sounds terrible. Anyway, so I guess the first thing you have to have is the ability to speak. And all of us here, I believe, have the ability to speak, do we not? Clarity, diction, tone is part of it. Stamina, believe it or not, is a big part of a voiceover performer's repertoire. Because you can work 8-10 hours a day in the studio. It's not that you do. Our average is about 3 hours. But for the most part, you'll be working, 3-6 hours or 2 shows a day, which is 8 hours. And sometimes, if you do things like this, the back device is not a toy for your amusement. So, my dear Baroness, and you do like, do that all day, see what happens to your voice. It gets really tired, and you have, for new performers, they lose their voices. And the one thing a voiceover performer doesn't want to do is lose your voice. So you're always trying to find voices that are within your range, and we have a tremendous range, whether we like it or not. We still do. It's the trick is to find it. And I always have a little trick, and that is, every one of us has about 12 voices in us. 12 just using our natural voice. And the way that works is we have in our body what are called resonators. You have a resonator in your head, in your sinuses, in your jaw, in your throat, your chest, even the back of your knees is a resonator. And if you don't believe me, if you talk sometimes and just feel the back of your leg, you can feel it vibrate in the back of your leg. You can feel it in your chest. You just put your hands on your chest and talk. You can feel that. And what that is like is just like on a box of a guitar or a violin or a drum skin. All these things reflect back the voice that you have. So here's the go. The 12 voices that you have inside you. First, there's the top of your head voice. Now this is staying in your own range, right? So you have the top of your head voice. And it's very airy and light because you're trying to put it up here to the top of your head. Now you take that voice and put it into your eyes. It becomes more innocent, more light, more Care Bears. Right? And then you take that voice and you put it into your nose. And as soon as you put it into your nose, it changes the quality of your voice without changing the tone or without actually doing any work. Now you take that voice from your nose and you put it to the front of your teeth. When you put it to the front of your teeth, it gives you sort of a prissy kind of, well, I don't like that. Now take that and put it into the middle of your mouth. When you put it into the middle of your mouth, it has this round kind of tone for a sort of large, small person or a librarian or something. Now you take that and you put it into your throat. And then down into the middle of your throat, and all of a sudden it starts to get warmer and lower. Now you take that voice and you put it down into your chest, and you haven't really changed your tone or anything. You've just changed the placement of the resonator in your body. Now, take that and add a little bit of gravel. Now you take the gravel and you put it into your throat. You take it from your throat into the middle of your mouth, into the front of your teeth, into your nose, into your eyes, and then the top of your head. All of a sudden you have 12 voices. And you go, how the hell do you do that? It's a pretty short and sweet, and that's very basic. You're just placing the voice in a different place in your head. The other thing that you have to remember, and this is a thing that a lot of us are guilty of, is diction. We have to understand what you're saying. If you have this great voice, we grab because you got to tell the story. Keeping him up already. So all those little voices, the little tiny squeaky voices, they all have to be clear. Right? Now, add an impediment, a breathing impediment, a stutter, a way of chopping off the words, breathing off breath when you're speaking, jumping your jaw and doing the Mr. Magoo kind of thing, you know. Yeah, and you find the laugh, and there's a character. If we find that laugh, you got your voice, right? It works out pretty good. So then you've got accents, and before you know it, you've got a multitude of voices. That's
you know,
just
something that occurred to me just now when you're talking about speech impediments. Whoever names speech impediments is cruel. Because whatever speech impediment you have is given a name that you can't say. A lisp, if you have a lisp, you can't say that. If you have a glottal stop, you can't say glottal stop. A bilateral S, you just can't say a bilateral S. I'm sorry, just
a thought.
You know, and once you have all the placements and you know how to use your instrument, and that's what it is, folks. It's just like playing a guitar, a horn. You have an instrument. I approach things also from the character and from where that character lives. There are people who can do great voices, but they just sound like great voices. They don't live. You know what I mean? They're not inhabiting a body. They're not inhabiting a character. So for me, once you've got all that, once you can master that and play around, then you've got to act and become that character you're doing. From when I approach video games or any animation, it's just like working on stage, working on film. I'm an actor. And instead of me being Ambassador Quell on Star Trek, because I've got all the makeup and all that stuff, if I'm, Grandpa Max, I'm going to be Grandpa Max. It's not just the voice. I'm going to feel him. I'm going to be like him. And I approach it the same way I do any other live action. One of the mistakes and I fall into, there are times when you have an audition, you say, okay, all right, I'm going to use this voice, I'm going to say that. And it comes off flat, because I'm not in it. So anybody who wants to do voiceover work should also, learn something about acting, learn something about creating characters, because that's what you're doing. You're creating this magical little thing that may be just on paper or just on CG, but it's got to live, and it's got to be you. I think you said yesterday that whatever you do, you become part of that character. You are. That's a little bit of me is in everything that I do, whether it's a good guy or some really evil people that I've played on different games and whatnot. So we have to take that little piece of us and put it in that character and screw it all together with the technique, and then you've got a package.
I guess the thing is that it's okay to have a voice and a great voice, and some of us are blessed with great voices and some with not so great voices. But the key, the voice is about 25%, maybe about 25% of the character is your voice. The rest of it is your acting ability. So if you're going to be a performer, like a voiceover performer, you have to learn how to act, because voice acting is the purest form of acting there is.
Yep.
And I'll explain why. When you see a cartoon on the screen, you're seeing the end product. What happens with us is we go into a studio and we record the voices. And when we record the voices, we put everything into the voice because the animator listens to your voice and then draws the character around that. And just like real life, characters have, cartoon characters have physical and emotional limitations. Like if you see a guy, a character with a long, thin, reedy neck and a tiny mouth, he's not going to sound like this. He's going to sound something a little tight, a little squeaky, a little what we call reedy, because there are physical limitations. He has to live within that reality. And so even though it's a cartoon, it's still a real world. And people who watch that show will watch it, and if you're giving a bad performance, then they will say, wow, that sucks. I mean, the voice is great, but I don't believe that character. Even though it's in an unreal situation, it's still real in that world. I mean, it's a philosophical thing. I don't want to bore you with all of that, but it's absolutely true. So if you want to be a good voiceover performer that can span right away across, you have to be a really good, solid actor, because your geographical, physical, emotional, and intellectual intent, by that I mean your emotions, if you're going to be emotional, it has to be clear. If you're in a big space or tied up in a chair, that has to be clear in your voice. If you're if you're running down the street or lying on a bed, that has to be clear. Now, I'll give you an example. It's an example I always use. And then there's two fellas. Okay, here's the storyboard. There's two fellas. They're sitting here on a bunk in a prison cell. There's a window. It's just out of reach, out to the outside. They hear hammering and banging going on outside. So one says to the other, as they're sitting there, gee, I wonder what's going on out there. Now, that's one scenario. Now, in this scenario, the fella sitting beside him gets up, walks over to the wall, leaps up, grabs the window, looks out to see a gallows hanging outside. So he goes, gee, I wonder what's going on out there.
It's for you.
Sorry. You see what the difference is?
Yeah.
So
There's
you
a
have
light.
to put all of that stuff into your voice, which means you have to be really, really good readers. I don't know, how many people read here? Like read. And how many can read out loud? Excellent. Because your ability, it's also your ability to get that stuff that's on the page off the page and make it come alive right away. Because though you may have 1 or 2 days rehearsal or 1 or 2 days to look at it, there's no rehearsal.
And sometimes you don't have 1 or 2 days.
No, sometimes you get it in 5 minutes.
You get there. I have one director who doesn't like to do table reads. In fact, that's Sue Blue, who's doing Ben 10 right now. She doesn't like to do a table read. Often you get in, you go through the script, so you get an idea of what's happening. She doesn't like that. She wants spontaneity.
Yeah.
She wants it to come off the page and live immediately. So you get the script, you walk in the studio, and you start doing takes. And often the first take is gold. Sometimes you got to do pickups here and there. But it all comes from learning how to take the word off the page and make it live. You know. Does anybody have any questions about anything you've said so far? Does anything make sense?
Are we putting you to sleep? Well, I hope not.
We're just in awe.
Huh?
We're just in awe.
Just in awe. Well, I'll tell you what, here's something. Getting the job. That's always important. Oh yeah, the ears are perking up now. How do I get a job doing this? Yeah, and the money. The money is unbelievable. Well, you know, when I closed my mansion in the Caribbean and
I'm taking my private jet back to.
Yeah. We were going to take regular flights, but we thought, what the hell? We need to warm up the jet, get it
Yeah.
going. You know.
And if you believe that, I have some property I want to sell.
No, there are lots of places. The major centers for animation production in North America are Vancouver, Los Angeles, Toronto, and to some extent Montreal. And I think they do a little bit in New York, but I'm not sure. I don't think so. There is some, I would imagine, but the
Are there
biggest.
still a lot of anime down in Texas?
Oh yes, they do. They do a lot of anime in Texas in a place called Funimation Inc. And they do a lot of the. Well, for any of you people who are anime fans and comic fans or cartoon fans, the Funimation guys seem to have the convention circuit locked up because they seem to be everywhere. Doesn't matter where you go. Oh, there's Funimation guys. Those Funimation guys. But the thing about Texas is Texas doesn't have a union contract. They work basically non-union, and I'm a union guy, so that's no good for me. But they do a heck of a lot of anime voicing in I think it's Dallas, isn't it?
Yeah.
In Dallas, Texas, and they do a lot of video games in Austin, Texas, funnily enough, and video games in Vancouver, Toronto, Los Angeles. Them being the major centers. So if you're going to be a voiceover performer, well, you're going to have to be in one of those places.
Interesting. I haven't done a lot of anime at all. No. The only anime I've done was Spirited Away and Porco Rosso. And those are both through Pixar, through
Pixar.
John Lasseter. And those are the only true anime that I've got to voice, which is... I don't mind having those be the ones that any Miyazaki I'll do. Okay. But I've never done a lot of anime. I think because anime for a long time wasn't union. And that may be why they went to Texas and other areas. But now that I'm starting to do cons, I'm running into anime folks. And how many anime fans here? A lot, yeah. I mean, you guys are insane. I love anime fans because
They're insane.
there's an energy there that is like over the top, and it's easy to feed off of that. Anybody who has a passion for anything, I want to be around.
Yeah.
Except maybe passion for murdering people and but that's why I do what I do. I have a passion for it. I love it. And I think that's the other thing that's important if you want to do any kind of, whatever you're doing, voice work or whatever, if you've got a passion for it and you have to do it and there's not something else that you can do that's going to make you more money or make it easier to live, then you got to follow your passion. I don't believe that, this whole thing about, well, there's too many of us, give it up.
The competition's too great.
I will get mine. You'll get yours. I've never believed in that stuff, except you.
You don't get yours because you overact.
Yeah.
I did have one thing to say. I am actually a stage actor. I do mostly stage acting, something like that. My father described it one time as, you guys were mentioning, getting a job. He described it as a noble profession because we're like people from the 1930s and the Great Depression. There's 100 of us that show up to work one day, and he says, I'm taking one of you to work today. Kind of deal. So, and then we keep coming back every day.
Every day.
Say no to me again. Come on, say it. Turn me
I
down
like
again.
it. It means I get to go golfing today. It doesn't work like that. That's the other thing. You have got to develop a thick skin.
Yeah.
It's not you, it's them. No, it's not you, it's just the way the world works. It's a very funny thing. Classic example, I was sitting in an audition session for a miniseries I did a long time ago called Small Sacrifices, a Farrah Fawcett thing. And as I was co-starring, I got to sit and watch them audition for the lawyer for her. So they had the screen up there, and they auditioned all these guys, and we watched all the tapes. Right? And there's like 6 guys, and every one of them was fantastic. And the producer who was sitting there, and the director was sitting there, and they're going, man, these guys are all good. Which one do I pick? And I swear to God, this is no word of a lie. The producer walked over and he goes, honey, to his wife, can you come over here for a second? And he says to her, which one would you pick? And she went through him and she goes, the guy with the yellow tie. I like that tie. I swear to God. The guy with the yellow tie. I like the tie. Years and years of training and sweating blood and bullets and going through all kinds of deprivation to have someone go, I like the guy in the yellow tie.
I'm buying a yellow tie.
Oh my God, and I did go out and buy that yellow tie.
You never know why you don't get the gig. You never do. And 9 times out of 10, it's not what you didn't do or what you did do. It's they wanted a different tone. They wanted
the towel.
Yeah, or it's the tie. Now, I had an audition for a show called The OC years ago when it was still on, and the director knew me from other shows that he directed me on, martial law or some Botchko show, and he called me in. He said, "Oh, this is you. Here's the deal." He's called me at home. He said, "We're sending you the script." He's a psychiatrist. He's a family psychiatrist, family therapist, and he's a warm. He described him as faintly Jewish-looking. His name, Jewish-looking. His name was Jason Steinberg, but just he looked kind of Jewish, with bearded, with a nice demeanor, caring demeanor. Okay, he said, "It's you." I said, "Cool." So I read over the stuff. I've got it. It's just a really lovely scene. I go in and I do the audition, and he said, the director was there. He said, "Great job." The producer said, "That's wonderful. It's perfect." I leave. I get a call that night from the director. He said, "Call?" And I said, "I didn't get it." He said, "No, they decided to go with an African-American woman." Who had? I said, "Is her name going to be Jason Steinberg?" No, but the problem was with that show, it was it came to their attention a little late, as far as I was concerned, that it was a very white show. There wasn't much diversity on the show at all. So they said, "You know what? We've got to make this. We've got to find a female." And they made it an African American, and she was brilliant. It's like, okay. I wanted to sit at home and say, crap, she sucks, man. I should have got it. But she was wonderful. And so it was one of those situations where I had it, but no. It had nothing to do with
that. That same woman,
that she wearing a yellow tie,
got me in Montreal. I was there's a director in Montreal named Yves Simoneau, who was doing a movie out in Montreal, and he said the same thing. "Garry, I have this part for you. It's absolutely perfect. You're the captain in this police department." I'm going, "Yeah, I'll give you that. We're here in Montreal. We'll be here for a month, and you've got to be there. It'll be great." And I'm going, "Great." And it was for USA Network. And I said, "Okay, cool." So I'm waiting. A couple of weeks later, I get a call. "The show's too white." I went, "What?" "The show is too white." And they gave my part to a 40-year-old African-American woman. So I'm going, the same bloody woman took his part, took mine. So there's a very wealthy, middle-aged African-American woman out there who's leeching off our expertise. Not that I'm bitter or anything, because I'm not. No. But you never know.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where sometimes they're a little late thinking of these things. Like, if you thought of that in the beginning, everything would be fine. One of the great things about what we do is that it has nothing to do with your auditions. I don't know if anybody was here for the auditions yesterday for the reading.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching me, I try not to watch when someone is doing a reading. I don't want to see their face. I don't want to see what they're doing. I want to hear the voice. I want to see what's going on. The reason I do that is because I don't want to be influenced by that person. I want to hear the voice. I want to be influenced by the voice. Now, what I love about what we do is when you audition, it doesn't matter how tall you are, how short you are, how thin, how fat, how black, how white, how yellow. It doesn't matter. It's your talent. It's what you can bring to the part. And it's really freeing as an actor to be able to do that. Because you know sometimes when you walk into the room, you know you're wrong for it physically if they're going to stick with that. Some people do, some people ignore that, which is great. The other thing I really love about what we do is I can be anything. I'm only limited by my talent. I'm not limited by my physical characteristics. One of my best friends is David Hall, who he's on CSI, one of the CSIs. And the first series I did with him was called The Littles. And it was right after he had had both legs amputated. So he couldn't get much work on camera. Now he's been on that show forever. He's the coroner or something. And he's a brilliant actor, but he couldn't get hired right after he lost his legs. Because he had no prosthetics and nobody was going to look at him. But he could do animation. And he did it incredibly well. And I can be 6'4", the way Colonel Campbell is, or I can be an insane mad scientist, the way Hojo is in Final Fantasy. I can be anything. You know, I can be any age, depending on what my talent is. So, God, as an actor, you know, what more can you ask for? You know, it's like, put me in the studio and turn me loose, you know?
Anyway, for you guys, the same thing. For you who want to start out as a voiceover performer, you've got to get your acting chops down. You got to get your voice chops down, how to train your voice so you don't burn it out in 6 months. The other thing that you have to have is, who do you connect with when you want to embark on this career? Well, first off, you have to get a demo. And you can make a demo at home. Nowadays we've got GarageBand, we've got Cakewalk, we've got Finale, we've got every kind of studio software in the world. In my day, you had a tape recorder and a microphone, and good heavens, if you can find a quiet spot to record, you could probably make a demo. Now you can make a whole production with music and sound effects and talk to yourself on multiple tracks and do all kinds of things. So it's a lot easier these days to make a demo reel, to put out there. And you don't have to spend a fortune at a studio to do it. You can do it at home on GarageBand. I recommend GarageBand because it's idiot-proof. It's really easy to use, and I can use it. And I use it a lot, I gotta say. No, it's a tremendous thing. So, what do you put on a demo tape? Well, first off, we've got to determine what your range is. Do you have a big voice, a little voice, wide, thin, reedy? Everybody has a marketable voice. Before you said, I don't have the voice of God, therefore I can't be a voiceover performer. Wrong.
Listen to the radio, listen to TV.
Yes. Listen to the cartoons. There's one or two guys who have voices like mine, and then there's a gazillion guys who have voices like Sam Vincent. I don't know if you know Sam. He does a lot of shows like Rollbots and a lot of the anime shows and Ed, and Eddie and things like that. And all those voices are like these really tiny little voices, but that's his own voice. It's a bit weird, but you know, he actually sounds like that. But
it works all the time.
But there are guys like his brother Gabe sounds like his natural voice is. You know the guy who used to be the little sort of I can't even remember his name with He-Man. And He-Man that's
Orko.
Huh? Orko. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Orko. But his voice sounds like that in real life. I mean, if he can get that job playing Orko, and and actually has had a pretty good career in voiceover. So don't kid yourself.
I just
Every
imagine
voice out
him in
there
the
is
bedroom.
one.
I'm sorry. I just imagine him with his wife in the bedroom with that little voice.
Oh, honey.
Sorry.
Oh, honey, hold me, touch me. Oh, let's not go there. There are children. I was just having a moment there. Pardon me, my improv just went for a little crazy. Close your ears, you filthy thing. Okay. Anyway, so it doesn't matter what kind of voice you have. It's what's behind the voice. You got the heart, you got the passion, you got the intent. Now, a lot of people will do a voice and they'll hear themselves on the tape and they'll go, my God, I sound like a really squeaky Minnie Mouse or Mickey Mouse. Or you sound horrible. You sound like that Nevish who lives down the road. No.
Or, God, I sound good.
Oh, yeah.
And as soon as you're listening to yourself, no, you don't sound that good.
No, that's the other thing. Don't fall in love with the sound of your own voice, or else you're going to be in big trouble. Because that's what it sounds like. Oh my God, you can't hear anything. You can't understand a word. Anyway, you have this voice. You have the passion. You have the heart. You have the contacts. Now you're going to make your demo. What goes on the demo? Well, we have heroes. We have dramatic heroes, comedic heroes. We have villains. We have,
The spidery. No, what's the word? Destroy them all, they're all gonna die.
that kind of voice. And then you have the muhaha, muhaha, that villain. You have the every kind of cycle you can think of. Put 2 or 3 of each of those characters on a demo. Make a story, like in a restaurant or a waiting room or at a wedding or something like that. You go Monster's wedding or Smurf's wedding or, and you get those characters. You get 3 heroes, 3 villains, and a few sidekicks, and then some ancillary characters like the butler because they all get voice too. Every voice that you hear is a character that gets paid. Not just the leads, everybody on the tape gets paid. So those little voices count too. So now you put them all into your demo, you've got a story, it's not more than 3 minutes long, and you've made copies of your tape or your CD. Now you're going to farm it out to an agent. Ah, yes, finding the agent. Who's going to take a novice on? Well, there are in Toronto, I don't know if any of you are in Toronto or Montreal or New York or Los Angeles or Chicago or Cincinnati or any of those towns. There are a lot of places that won't take on new talent, but there are some smaller agencies that will. Now, if you get taken on with your tape is your calling card. It's your audition. So when you make your tape, first, get it together in a format that you want. Plot it out. Write out your script. Then take that script and put it on a what we call a scratch tape or a mock-up. So you're making a fake tape, just on a tape recorder at home. Now you take it to someone you trust or a professional and have them listen to it and say, listen to my tape, what do you think? And
Just send them all to Garry.
yeah, just send them all to me.
No,
No,
all of them.
I've had that. And
We get them all the time. Can give a listen. And
just give a
like an
listen.
idiot, they actually wait for me to reply, and I do. I always, it's like, why not? We're all in this thing called life together, so why not, do it? But it doesn't hurt to get advice from. Don't have too many people listen, because
No.
everyone everyone has opinions or like. Mouths. I'll make it clean. Everybody has one. Okay? So don't have too many people listen, because then you'll just go crazy.
You'll go crazy.
One of the most important things is when you're trying to get that thing out to people. A lot of people won't listen, and most of them will only listen to the first 20 seconds. 20, 25 seconds, even though you got 2 minutes, you got that really gold there at the last. Wait till that last 30 seconds, man, I'm really kicking. No, You gotta get their attention up front. That doesn't mean go insane up front, but whatever you're strong with, get it at the beginning of that CD, because 9 times out of 10, they've got a lot of stuff to listen to, they've got a lot of stuff to do, and they're not going to spend a lot of time. But even though we're saying how difficult it is for them to listen and all that stuff, I promise you, everybody out, every casting director out there, it happened to me when I was in Los Angeles, every casting director wants to discover that new voice. They want to discover that, same thing when they want to discover that new face. Everybody wants to discover somebody. It's true. When I first moved to Los Angeles back in the 80s, I got signed by a commercial agent, Sutton Rock and Venari, but they only signed me on camera. They said, well, we've got everybody we need voiceover. So there's, we can't help you. And I said, well, if you keep me working on camera, I'm cool with that. I was doing film and TV, so it was fine. And then one day, they were watching my tape, because I had booked a couple of commercials, and the voiceover person walked by, just happened to be walking by, and listened. They said, "Oh, wow, that's interesting," because I was doing this weird character. And she said, "Yeah, I've got an audition for an Olive. I think I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him in." And so she called me in, and my first audition in Los Angeles was for a Lindsay Olive, Lindsay Wright Olives. And because she heard that, she said, "Oh, wow, that's cool." And she discovered me. She was my agent, but she was with the agency, but she wasn't my agent. She did that. She called somebody. The casting director started calling me in, and then one thing leads to another. So I was a new voice in town, so it was cool.
They send you in for everything.
Yeah, and you know what? The other advantage you guys have right now is the internet. Now, I don't know how Garry feels. A lot of guys hate the idea of fan dubs. I don't. I think it's absolutely fine. I think it's cool that people take the time to do these fan dubs, and they'll, link me to YouTube or whatever, and say, check this out, hear what we're doing on this and that. Any way you can practice is cool.
Very cool.
Do it. Practice. And I've got a friend in Edinburgh. I was telling somebody earlier. A young man in Edinburgh contacted me when he was 17 years old. He was a fan of one of the games I did. And this dude is incredibly talented. At 17, he's got a voice like Garry's. He also is a composer, a singer. So I contacted a friend of mine in London who's a producer for Cartoon Network. I said, "You've got to hear this guy. You've got to go onto his YouTube channel." And he keeps putting it out there. And now he got hired to do a job. I don't know where it was. But there are a lot of jobs that are non-union that are happening. I've got friends on getting jobs off the internet from companies in Russia. It's all over there. So if you want to do it, check it out. And there are sites on the internet where you can actually go and submit things for different voiceover casting companies. Don't pay anybody though. If somebody's asking for a bunch of money up front,
No.
don't fall for it.
It's a scam.
But, do it. Who wants to do voiceover work here? So, do it. And one other thing, every once in a while I hear somebody say, well, I want to do this on the side.
No.
Well, if you're going to do it on the side, it's going to be on the side. You know what I mean? That's why I tell my daughters who are both, one who just graduated from college and another one who's in college, they're both going to be actresses. And one thing that, parents and everybody always say, well, have something to fall back on. Well, if you have something to fall back on early on, when you're 20, 22 years old, you're going to fall back on it.
Yeah.
I say, almost swore, go for it. If it's your heart, if it's your passion, and that's where you get your bliss, then go for it. I will never tell my daughters, well, make sure you get that education degree because you may want, that'll come. I didn't make a decision to be an actor until I was 27 years old. Before that, I was doing this job for a couple of years, and I did that job for a couple of years. All I knew is that me, couldn't work an 8 to 5 job. It just wasn't in me. I just, I don't know if it's ADD or whatever, I just I couldn't see myself sitting at a desk that long. So I knew I had to do something. I was a musician, I had to do all this other stuff. And I didn't make my decision until then. Now, I hope I don't irritate parents out there who have young people who want them to, find that career when you're 18 years old. I don't know where my daughters are going to end up. I don't know if they're going to be actresses. Part of me is like, please, no, and I know how crazy it is. But, my God, follow your heart. You got to do it. You got to make a living too, obviously. But if it's your passion, do it. Look at us. We're two, goofy guys who are making careers of it, and I don't know about you. I love every minute of it.
Every second. I've been doing this as a profession for 33 years, and I absolutely love it. And it's really eerie because we're sitting here talking about other jobs and falling back. Well, I did before this. I started I always wanted to be a performer, but I never actually went into it as a profession until I was 27 years old. And you can check my IMDb and my school, and you'll see that we started at exactly the same time. I went to school. I went into university. I originally wanted to teach English literature and anthropology, because I still to this day love anthropology and English lit. And it's one of my passions when I was younger. But then I went downstairs to the theater department at the college I was going to, and I saw a show, Mice and Men, and it was really, really good. Like, the production values were good, the acting was amazing, and I was just going, oh my, this is fantastic. This isn't high school at all. I want to be a part of this. And I don't know if you were here yesterday when I went and I told the Anthony Holland I went and auditioned for him at Langara College. And he goes, oh, you've got some talent, not much, but some. You're in. All right, here you go. And from that day on, I knew that's what I wanted to do for a living. And before that, I was a stockbroker. I was a bouncer in a bar. I worked as a social worker. I did all.
He was a bouncer at the stock market, actually.
Yeah. And what's very funny is that you go out and try all these things. And I found that being an actor is more of an avocation rather than an occupation, because you have to love it. You put up with so much rubbish. You put up with rejection every day, and with being out of control of your own destiny, and that the only thing that you're in control of is that you get up in the morning and you go to sleep at night. Everything else is dependent on the whim of that telephone ringing. This is how an actor sleeps at night. You put the phone and hold your hand on the button, just in case it rings while you're sleeping. And you can wake up and grab the job. Yes, I'll take it. I'll do anything. And I have done in my career, and everything I'm going to tell you, everything contributes to your career. Sorry, megaphone. I was in Ottawa. How many people are from Ottawa? Okay, there used to be a company there that did balloonograms and gorillograms. And I used to dress up in a gorilla suit in Ottawa and go around and do singing birthday telegrams for people in Ottawa. And the most famous one I ever did, I walked into the Secretary of State for Canada's office. And the Deputy Secretary of State, it was her birthday. And they were having this international conference in this big round boardroom in Ottawa. And I was Fernando, the kissing bandit. And my gag was I'd paint on this thick black mustache, and I'd come up and plant a big one on their cheek, and they'd be left with the outline of a mustache on their cheek. And I'd sing Fernando's Hideaway. And I walked in with my cape and my bolero, my mask, my big mustache, and I said, "Where is Eleanor?" And she goes, "Oh my God, you're not going to take off your clothes, are you?" All these people from China, Russia, France, Germany were all looking at her like, Garry on?
You couldn't do that today.
You couldn't do it today. But here's the thing. I did that, I was a greeter, I did murder mysteries. Anything that had to do with performing, I did it. And I did it, except for pornography, I didn't do any porno. Because it just lasts forever and it ruins your career, I'm telling you. Ask him. I mean,
it really, no, man.
He's only 30
back then. But those early years were really a lot of fun.
The stress was too much. Anyway, so everything that you do as a performer contributes to your craft. And I find that, as we're saying, finding your tape and giving it to someone who you trust. Not too many, just some. And the person who you trust the most and who you respect will give you an honest assessment. And if it's no good, take it back and keep working on it. If it's good, then you put it into a final tape, or a final CD, or a final memory stick, and you start farming it out to agents. We were talking about online accessibility. There are a couple of places. There's the Voice Bank. There's Voices 1, 2, 3. There's
another one I can't. Voice something.
Yeah, there's voice call, Voice Bank.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of them. And what they do, the reason why they work is they you put your tape and submit your tape to these online places, and they have a registration. I think it's like $30 or something. But you go in and you get auditions. You audition for them on your home studio. You send it back out. If they like it, they pay you. Not very much, unfortunately, but they pay you. And it's a good way to get started and get practice. It's killing us because
our competition has gone up, like that.
Well, there's 100,000 people on some of these things, right? Luckily, 99,910 are awful. There's only one or two good voices on those tapes. So if you have a good voice, you have a good chance. And when you see that audition come up, bang, nail it, and record it and send it out. So you have those agencies for non-union vendors. But the advantage of that is that they're all over the world. So jobs can come from Hong Kong, from South Africa, from Australia, from Canada, from Europe, from anywhere, from India even. I was talking to Mona Chetty, who runs all the dubbing for Indian movies in India. And she has the largest ADR company in India, in Mumbai. And they translate every single movie that comes into India, gets translated or ADR in India. And she was asking me to come over and teach a workshop to Indian actors to tell them how to do ADR. And I'm going, well, I don't know, it'll be kind of fun, but don't they speak Indian? And she goes, no, a lot of them speak English. They are very good, but they have no idea of the concept, and so we're going back and forth chatting about this. And so there you go. You submit your taped auditions to them. If perchance you should get an agent, and if perchance your agent sends you out or sends your tape out to the animations like Nelvana, like Aces, Animation City, who are some of the other ones here in Ontario? Huh? Yes, Nerdcore. Nerdcore is based in Vancouver. We have Nerdcore and IPP and all those things. If you send them out to all those companies and they'll listen to your tape, the trick is you still have to be there for the auditions. So if you live close to Toronto, then Toronto is the place where you concentrate all your efforts. If you live close to Vancouver, Vancouver is where you concentrate all your efforts. And the same in the United States, Los Angeles, Chicago. Now, we have to wrap up really quick. Now, I just want to, somebody, if you have a couple of questions, we've got literally 2 minutes.
I just have one. Where is a good place to learn the skills that you're talking about, like the acting and the voice acting? Do you know of any schools for voice acting or something like that? Or do you guys do lessons or something like that?
Unfortunately, there are very few schools for voice acting, but if you go online, there is a woman who does online voice coaching that I saw from Los Angeles, who's been doing it for 40 years, and who is an amazing voice coach. I've seen some of her tapes. There's another fellow out of Chicago that also has an online. Just look, online voice coaching. If you're not close to a voiceover school, the best way to do it is online. If you're close to a voiceover place, there are very few people or very few places that teach it as part of the curricula. Langara teaches it. Capilano College teaches it. I'm going by where I live. Vancouver Film School also teaches it, but it's expensive.
Yeah, there are lots of places out in LA, unfortunately.
Next question, then we gotta wrap it up, guys.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I'm not. Well done. That's right. Whatever. Anyway, I'm not much interested in voice acting myself. More or less finding voice actors. I would actually basically. This is more of an announcement to the general audience. If anyone's interested in working with me on that. Alright, good. Also, just wanted to ask, what are some good places in Toronto to look towards finding amateur voice actors?
Amateur voice actors? Voices123voices.com. There are tons of them. There are 100,000 voices.
And all you have to do is go online and you have Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Post it on your page that you're looking for voice actors for whatever the project is, and you will get hits.
People,
Yeah.
The actors. There's an actors page. An actors. It's called Actors Resource Page or something like that.
Actors Resource Page.
You post it, there'll be tons of people on there.
Okay, it's great just because I've been having trouble finding this one key component. Everything else pretty much falls into place and isn't quite easy to research. This is the more difficult component. Anyway, I'll be in the back. I'll be interested to talk about anyone who would like to work with me in the future.
Excellent. Done. Thanks.
And thank you very much, everybody. We are unfortunately out of time. Hand to our
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. I wish we had more time. We don't. But it's a great audience. Thank you for being.
Mr. Chalk and Mr. Eiding are both available for autographs in the foyer from 2 until 4. Coming up next, our third-party product review.